All right, welcome blockheads. It is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. It is 12 noon on the East Coast. This is episode 96 of Business on the Block. This week, AI employees and e-learning scraping. We'll explain. We're going to tackle this week. We'll tell you all about the AI salesperson who never logs off. We're going to outline the sneaky way that e-learning platforms are scraping their teachers' courses to train the generative AIs. And we'll tell you why Meta's new AI Ray-Bans may become the next big privacy scandal. I am joined, as always, this week by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And Mike Neubauer.
I get to say it now, too. Good afternoon.
Yes.
And I'll kick us off with story number one. This week out of Forbes, it looks like there's a company named Artisan. Artisan is raising $11 million plus to launch an AI employee for sales teams. So Artisan is a San Fran-based company that deploys human-like AI employees. They're basically avatars that handle the entire go-to-market process. Their flagship AI employee, Ava, automates the biz dev workflow from prospecting, nurturing leads, straight on through to closing. The company now claims you can automate entire job workflows and that these things will act as a true team member, not just another tool. Thoughts around this one, Mike? We're going to start with you. What do you think about Artisan's new AI sales employee?
I think Artisan's new AI sales employee will be Artisan's old AI sales employee very, very quickly. You can put as many different metrics and variables into these computer programs and say that they're the ideal Salesforce employee, but people seem to forget that sales specifically is a very personal, human-to-human type of experience. And while we live in this social media world where half of it is manufactured and graphics and videos and overlays and influencers that don't even know what product they're pitching, the reality is that the need to have a sales force that can connect with an individual on a personal level is still the psychological game. And I don't think we're at a spot yet where AI can sort of replace that. Now, is it possible that people will buy from these things? Absolutely. There's people that don't want to deal with people, and instead they just want to buy that, either that flash in the pan type product, that impulse buy, or something that they actually did a little bit of homework and research on. But I don't see how this could ultimately be that replacement metric as opposed to another tool that could help train a sales force. That is something that I feel this may evolve a little bit better into. But I think the age-old rule in sales, you definitely don't want to convince somebody to be sold. You want to convince them to buy, whether they need or want the product. And that's the mark of a true good salesman. If you're constantly throwing one-liners and different stats and details about the products at people, you're not relating to them on a personal level that makes them want to buy from you as opposed to the actual product.
I love the concept of the know, like, and trust. Michelle, what do you think about this?
One of the things that struck me when I was reading this article, particularly about where they talk about, level entry jobs, the lower than the low, whatever's, I thought to myself, okay, so at the moment, we still have a model in this world of people finish high school, they go to university, they get training, they might do an internship or whatever, then they get the lower level entry jobs. So what's going to happen in 5 years' time when nobody has been trained to actually do the level entry jobs? Is everyone going to come in as managers now with zero experience? Longer term, I just see there is going to be a Grand Canyon-sized chasm in businesses where there's nobody with enough skills to do the higher level jobs because none of them have spent a couple of years doing the level entry stuff.
So I got three thoughts on this. I agree with you, Michelle. Number one, Mike, I'm taking your side as well. The human-to-human experience of know, like, and trust is what drives sales. Yeah. Number two, the whole concept of EQ over IQ is what I teach it. So I've done sales for 30 years. People don't care about the facts and figures until they like you. All right. And so there's that connection piece has to happen first. AI makes this tough. However, content is the front end of selling. I've been saying that for years, and that the back end of content / AI like workflow here is relationship. Like at the end of the day, once they've been prospected and they are interested in buying, they're going to want to meet and understand who's the person behind the company. And so that's where it becomes a two-parter. Agentive workflows are where we're headed. And what that means is a series of agents, AIs working in concert is the front end of it. But it opens the door to the back end of, okay, now you need to be able to build that rapport as a human. They're going to want that. Michelle, that's your point. It's going to be the key element here isn't just the AI. That's part of it. It's also people skills.
And, the other thing too is when you go, if you have a look at some CEO of BioAccess or whatever, he hired Ava 2 months ago, and he's had a consistent plus 3% positive response rates. I'm thinking to myself, so, in the future, we have everybody out of work, but you're going to get 3% more positive response rate. You still need to sell to them. That's just booking the calls. Is the trade-off of actually not having a human do that job worth 3%? Like, I would have expected a much bigger bang for your buck if you're going to not have any employees anymore.
Recently on social, on LinkedIn, Marcus Sheridan, if those are familiar with him, had posted a piece about companies are going to move towards AI workflows, but that there are a lot of folks who don't want that. And in the comment section, lots of folks were like, I don't want to deal with an AI. But the reality is there's an economic aspect. It's cheaper for the companies. If you're going to pay someone to pound the door down on someone else, these machines can do it at minimal cost. So it's going to happen whether we like it or not.
But the other thing we've also...
piece.
Yes. But the other thing we've also talked about in the past, and you would know this from your sales experience, Mark, is that it can be upwards and over 7 touch points with a person to get them over the line for a sale. Yeah. Like, if I know that AI is calling me 7 times, that is not the same as Jerry ringing me up every quarter and saying, how are the kids? And I say, oh, you got married. Was it good? We're not ready yet, but, put me on your list, call me again in 3 months or whatever, right? Like, that is completely different to knowing that this AI isn't a real person. Or is that particular company pretending that they are real people? I don't know.
So I want to make a comment about the folks programming these AIs are IQ folks, and this is an EQ dynamic we're discussing. Yes. And I'm going to give an example. When I was at Lehman Brothers in 2008 and they went out of business, that last week before the company disappeared and it was unclear whether we were going to make it or not, I called all my best clients who were my friends and said, I don't know anything, but if you don't get your money out of this firm and we go down, you're never getting it out. And that saved a lot of people's careers and made me some bulletproof relationships. And an AI is not going to do that yet, maybe in the days ahead someday. But my point is that EQ piece isn't understood and programmed in, if you will, yet, because these people building it aren't those types of people.
Yeah. So when I was in sales, Michelle, to that exact point, I used to sell like that, right? I would call people in Chicago and I would talk about the Bears game the night before, right? Like, I would relate to them on a level that isn't, hey, Mike, I'm Mike from so-and-so here to sell you so-and-so. I would just shoot the shit with them about sports, about some of the things that are happening in the world that are obviously non-confrontational, gauge their reactions, and then just have a discussion, have a conversation like we're doing now. We're not really scripted here. We have a rundown, but we didn't cover what we're going to say here. This is just a conversation. Yeah. And frankly, that's the personal touch that I really feel would never exist with AI. It can try to calculate all these different variables of input based around a response from a user. But what is the actual benchmark? What is the actual North Star that this could relate to that actually shows any promise? The automated customer service telephone representative, did that swing over very well? But I want to relate some of these things, and this isn't meant to continue the conversation longer than it needs to, but we have touched on this with respect to the way that AI is being developed. We have to be very careful that the way AI is being infused, impregnated, and thrown at us from every direction, that it does not impede our ability to still hold these types of conversations. It does not provide this predictive algorithm with more accuracy so that we generate our responses and our conversation habits around a predictive output that AI would sort of produce for us. And if we get to that point, and we get to that point where we start acting, conversing, talking, working, investing in a way that is relative to the way that AI is narrating, then they will, these systems will be the ones that sort of take over the way that we live, work, and, you know, experience our cultural and day-to-day lives.
Mike, okay, Michelle, please, you go first.
I was going to say, I wonder at which point in time, and maybe this should it be part of our next prediction episode, but what point in time will there be a revolution where people will just go, we're not interacting with the billions of AI bots that are out there now unless they're going to become human? Like, I don't know, it could be 10 years, might be 15 years. I don't know. It could be 5 years at the current rate where everyone thinks that AI is like, do you have this saying in America? We have a saying that's the best thing since sliced bread.
Yep.
And so, you know, like, at the moment, everyone thinks it's the best thing since sliced bread. CEOs and whatever think, oh, great, I can get rid of, 20%, 30%, 100% of my employees and just do AI and all things are dandy and everything's going to be fantastic. But at some point, like, the foundation of some of that stuff is built on a house of cards. It's going to blow over and people are just going to go, not anymore. I'm done.
So this is the psychology aspect of selling. And there is... the people building, as I said, don't think in terms of human psychology. And that's what you're describing, Michelle. People at the end of the day want to connect, and that's going to be, they're only solving for the technology front end piece. Should be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
All right. I'm taking us into story number 2. The e-learning platform Udemy is scraping teachers' courses with AI. E-learning platform Udemy has 250,000 online classes. They announced they will be training generative AI on the classes that are contributed to its site. All class teachers were automatically opted in and were notified of this after it was too late for them to opt out. So there's a little bit of a controversy around this. Interestingly enough, they were given only a 3-week window, and in which case, like I said, no one even knew about it. So Udemy is clearly taking the intellectual property, in my opinion, of these folks who contributed, because remember, you pay Udemy to use those platforms. Thoughts around this one? Michelle, we're going to start with you. What do you think about Gen AI being used on Udemy?
I don't know, how many weeks in a row now? Is this the 4th week, 5th week in a row where we've gone, some platform has screwed over its users and done this either by stealth mode or pretending that they told them, they never told them. And ultimately there's a backlash. Now, should we or should we not allow them to use our content? As we know, if you've been on Facebook or Google or whatever for many, many years now, they've been doing it without telling us. So this is probably a case of Udemy, having to come clean, maybe. I don't know. But I think that there are plenty of other platforms out there now and people can move to them. One of the things I think that is most telling about what they've said is that when someone asks them, and it says in the article, will we be penalized for opting out, for example? They said that, no, you won't be penalized. But then 3 sentences down, it says, but of course, the Gen AI will promote content that it learns from more than the content that it doesn't, which effectively means, yes, you're going to be penalized. But to their credit, and the article also says that they have apparently said that they will go back and remove all of your data from their Gen AI set if you opt out or opt out in the beginning. So that's the first platform that's done that. Certainly no other platforms have said that they'll do that. Whether or not they can actually manage that, technically, Mike, you can tell us what that means. And that's one of the reasons why they've talked about only doing it once a year, and because they have to go back over the data and pull out your information and all of that stuff. I mean, it sounds all a bit BS to me, but it could just be me.
Mike, what are your thoughts around this?
I mean, I think that if a company is willing to just basically steal your data, and I'm going to stress that term as I have for these 4 or 5 weeks straight now, I don't think they're in a spot to be believable when they say that they have your best interest at heart and they're going to unteach this AI all the things that it automatically stole from you. But I mean, I'm this close from starting a crypto coin called data and just letting that be the currency because that clearly is what's at stake here. All of these AI infused, impregnated devices that now are just tossed down our throat are going to be things that we're just not going to be able to escape from. And it is the modern day version of all of the Google algorithms, all of the Facebook algorithms, all of the behavioral and predictive traits that we have in our connected experiences, whether it's on our phones, on our computers, in this case, in online courses. We're not going to be able to escape it. And will there be issues of intellectual property being stolen, regurgitated, and promoted as now this AI version when it came from somebody else? Absolutely. Look, I hate to use the term because we used it so much in the crypto and NFT space, but this still very much is the wild, wild west, right? There is no guardrails. There are no safety nets. It is, kill or be killed, take or be taken. And I think that, frankly, if we're going to be consistent in this space, whether it's content creators, online course generators, just somebody who produces value in an online forum, you have to be conscious that whatever you're doing, this show included, will be transcribed and possibly regurgitated or analyzed to pull out specific behavioral tendencies that could be sold to the highest bidder.
So I've got strong thoughts around this. As a guy who's created many courses and sold them to from folks like Joe Polizzi to actually LinkedIn. Number one, removing the course from this Udemy after the fact, after it's been scraped, doesn't matter, right? It's the Borg. It's already absorbed the information. That doesn't make a difference. Number two, this is the uncomfortable, difficult frustration that we have to get through. We talked about this way back in the Web3 days. This will lead the way to the Web3 concept of ownership of your data on the blockchain, because people will eventually, there's literally no alternative right now. Everyone is stealing your data, to your point, Mike. So what do folks do? It's going to take an Elon or someone to roll out some version of, okay, you actually do own and can control your data. And number three, I don't think any of the other platforms are safer either, Michelle. I feel like these guys just either admitted it, but we all know that everyone is stealing everyone's data right now. So there's really nowhere to go. I feel
we're 96 episodes in right now, right? And we've seen a technological evolution happen in just 96 short episodes of us doing these types of topics. The whole concept of Web3 and data ownership by the user, that's almost an archaic thing of the past at this point, because these AI tools can manage, analyze, and basically compartmentalize the data sets so fast that it doesn't matter if you own it. It's still going to classify you within those quadrants. Whether you own the data or not, it can still repurpose it. And that really didn't exist at this scale when Web3 was first introduced to the mass audiences. And I think that even with AI being able to analyze it much faster, transactions on chain and even predictive transactions at particular periods, whether it's crypto transactions just in the sense of file storage, all of these predictive variables will become that new currency. So blockchain is a solution, but there still needs to be safety rails on that solution that make it viable. And I'll just basically throw out the word Norton. Norton saw the business of internet security and they ran with it. There's not that doesn't exist right now. We don't have a Norton against AI.
I agree with you, Mike. I feel like people want that, though, right? In the past, they didn't know they needed it, and now people you're stealing their IP. When Mickey Mouse or the Nike swoosh is potentially at risk, right? People are putting stuff on content online now with these things, and you can't protect it. I mean, you guys remember the old days of copyright strikes on YouTube? If you put a clip of Star Wars and Disney would whack you,
yeah, and they'd take you down.
That doesn't exist now. They're literally ripping off people's intellectual property for around education, and there's zero recourse.
Well, that's this one example, but multiply this example by whatever other, services that you could provide online. It could be postings. It could be just interaction with anybody, right? Like just the overall user experience when they're connected, either on their phone or on a computer, on a website, on Google, on any search engine, on any app. All of these things are now being able to be captured, segmented, and redistributed, not by one particular monster in the form of Google, but an even bigger monster in training this AI version of whatever people will pay for the highest, whatever highest bidder will pay for that particular data set to monetize in the future.
I think that ultimately this is another step on the road to blockchain for people's content.
Again, I feel like there still needs to be safety rails put in place. Blockchain is just an arbitrary answer. When you start peeling back the onion, there are vulnerabilities that need to be sort of in place before that becomes a reliable solution.
Are you suggesting legal, Mike, like Securities Exchange Commission type stuff? What are you saying?
No, that's always miles behind all this. We know that. We've said that several times here, right? I'm talking about a counter AI that can basically safeguard the existing AI. Right? A computer program like Norton to protect against malware and other computer programs. We need something an insurance plan, just some sort of a security, private. I'm not talking government. Fuck government. Trust me when I tell you, they cannot put their hands on this or else it's over. If we can find a privatized organization that is sole focus is protection, and Elon has talked about this many times, right? Sole purpose is protecting and I guess holding to account all of these AI boundary oversteppers. That's going to be the important piece that that needs to be in place, even if blockchain is the ultimate foundational piece here.
So then you're talking about the reprogramming of the T-800 Terminator into making it a one that protects human life rather than hunts it.
Well, yeah, we need Arnold to be the good guy in T2.
Got it.
I mean, there's so many things that every week, like we talk about it every week, but there's stuff that comes up this week, for example, and it has to be AI. And I mean, obviously it is, but, based on my LinkedIn profile, I got offered jobs that might be suitable for me, right? Now, not to be whatever, but I've been working for 30 years, over 30 years. I've got 5 university degrees, and LinkedIn said that my profile perfectly matches a job for a container park gatehouse clerk.
You look pretty strong.
Yeah, but it's the gatehouse clerk, so it's the person who sits there stamping the forms, maybe, I don't know, or scanning them into the database, but like at a salary less than I was earning 25 years ago. Like, it's insane the stuff that's being generated and dished up to people, which proves to me that this stuff still has a long, long way to go before it actually gets really good.
I'm thinking nightclub bouncer or longshoreman for you, Michelle.
I'll see if I can find something.
I'm having an interesting conversation with Kathy, like sort of on the sidebar here in LinkedIn. And this is not only to prove that we do this live. Kathy, what's up? Thanks for chiming in.
Thanks for joining.
But there's a lot of good points that are sort of brought up here. We're going to sort of segue back to story number 1. What could this possibly account for? These AI tools that are sort of replacing the operational infrastructure. I mean, 10% of the sales that, this will work 10% of the time. I mean, how the hell do you keep your lights on with that type of metric, right? Again, the psychology behind this, the masses are not glued to ChatGPT yet, right? It's not that app that makes them waffles in their pocket, right? So as these things continue to evolve, again, we just need to make sure that they're set up correctly and that the data is protected in the sense that people know what vulnerabilities they have. Facebook was genius at exploiting that because they treated it like their own personal diaries, right? But from a business perspective, you have a lot more to lose. And for, bringing something like the data collection and just sort of training this type of bot to replace your sales team, that is a massive risk. You better have one hell of a product that people don't need to understand a lot about it and just need to be navigated through a sales funnel in order to even survive.
100%.
We talked about the Air Canada example, didn't we? Where the chatbot told the guy a particular thing. They said, oh, no, you've got to pay the full fare. He took them to court. They lost. So, that's not an isolated incident. And I think over the next couple of years, that's just going to be more and more and more until companies realize they actually need to work this out a bit better before they just buy some off-the-shelf package of some, yes, we can be your customer service representative software, and then suddenly all hell breaks loose because it actually isn't being trained properly.
I want to echo the sentiment there, Mike, and just shout out to Kathy, who I am a big fan of. I follow her stuff on LinkedIn. For those who don't know, Kathy is worth following. Also to the Bolt folks, guys, we do this live for a reason. We thank you guys for the engagement, so it doesn't go unnoticed. Carry on, Mike. I'm sorry.
I agree.
Okay, I'm taking this as story number 3 here. And unfortunately, we have to grab our tinfoil for this one. All right, this one is involving Facebook. Meta has Ray-Bans, as we all know, maybe a privacy risk. Meta has rolled out sunglasses that scan the environment by taking a continuous stream of live video, often without the users aware of this. Meta is, quote, not saying, unquote, whether the images taken will be used to train its AI. The article goes on to say that Meta's lack of transparency over this privacy issue is, and I quote, surprising. I think we're going to start. Michelle, we'll start with you since you're chuckling at this. What are your thoughts around Meta's new glasses that are taking real-time live streaming and doing something with it? We don't know what.
I think what is surprising is that Martin wrote the word surprising in this. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure what Martin was surprised about. Funny, interesting story. We were in Italy over the summer and we toured the Pagani factory, which for people who don't know are very exclusive supercars worth many millions of dollars, and they do like 50 cars a year. So sometimes you can wait 5 years for a car. And we toured the factory, and you had to, obviously leave all of your, phones and notepads, and you weren't allowed to write anything, et cetera, et cetera. And as we were walking around looking at things, my son was trying to remember what was where, and because there were cars half being built, and he kind of knows people who are ordering and all of that kind of stuff. And we were talking at the time, we're like, if only we had Ray-Bans that could be taking pictures while we were walking around here, which hilariously, as an aside, subsequently he got sent a plan of the factory by someone afterwards saying, tell me what cars were in what bays. Like, we could have made a killing if we had actually done this, which would have been good. But yeah, not actually the point of the Ray-Bans and the privacy thing. But I mean, it's Meta, nothing's private, and they will do whatever they like with whatever photos it is that they take and wherever they put them. That's the bottom line.
Mike, I'm going to guess you have strong opinions on this.
I mean, I did in 2019 when I first heard about this. So that's when the deal was actually signed, and I guess it took them this long to put it into effect. But this is the arguably one of the biggest invasions of privacy we've come to see. You want to talk about data collection and just the ability to understand human behavior. You could just be walking down the street. You could be sitting on a bus, on a train, sitting in traffic, and the dick behind you is like flipping you off with his Ray-Bans and streaming live to Facebook or Instagram. I mean, this is how we create that. What was that scene in Batman where he used all the cell phones to create a 3D map of the city and basically, that's exactly what this is becoming. But I want to throw another variable in that really wasn't around, at least at scale, back in 2019 when this was first brought up. I mean, we have this scary new tool called AI that we talk about 90% of the time every week now. Who's to say that any of this content is just repurposed and regenerated for a particular purpose that is counter to the realities that we exist? Who's to say that you can't upload any sort of AR imagery and create this false reality with people that don't even know you just because they're in front of the lens. Like, I'm thinking, I'm thinking worst case scenario, guys walking by a playground with these things on, having, inhumane thoughts or crazy ideas that now they can record and, sort of relive later on using AI tools and all these other things. This is scary as hell. And frankly, there needs to be indicators on these nice looking, Terminator style Ray-Bans that indicate that you being in front of these things are currently on camera, either being recorded or being streamed live to the world. If not, we're going to run into a lot of serious issues and a lot of all these AI stories about manufacturing realities. Like, we call this conspiracy corner, but I guarantee you this is not far off from an inhumane world that is around the corner. And frankly, Meta is at the nucleus of all of it.
So
go
ahead.
What about how many times James Bond had a pen in his pocket that was a recording device that when it was uploaded, he could then throw the pen and it blew people up? Like, this is the kind of territory we're talking about with this stuff.
So
that all started with Home Alone. I blame Macaulay Culkin for that.
Kathy makes a good point about the legal hell and lawsuits. She talks about real world TV shows. This is where we're headed. Kathy, I agree with you in some degree, and I'll explain this. Number one, Mike, I didn't think of the privacy nightmare angle of like luring children. That's a really interesting, dark, but you're right. Something to be concerned about. But to Kathy's point, this is going to evolve into real-time marketing, and I'll tell you why. If you have the ability, you guys remember back in the old days in social, you could like check in at locations. You could be the mayor of a location. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm walking into a store or wherever I am and it's in real time and some idiot's got the glasses there and they know, the company would know immediately that I'm there, you can suddenly market to me in real time through AR. You can have, you could generate a whole bunch of video involving me that you send to me that is engaging and entertaining. For example, I get to see, all of a sudden I'm playing with Spider-Man because I happen to be over at Universal Park. My point is, you can encourage people you can tug emotional strings through video, and now they've got the ability to generate that artificially, and you combine these two things. It's a marketing bonanza. I don't
disagree with you at all. I think it definitely will evolve to that. Again, you're talking about, just the data. What target audience can you provide the information to at a specific period of time? I guess my pushback on that is, in theory, it works great as a marketing tool. But in practice, how many people are going to want to walk down the sidewalk because it's sunny, they got their Ray-Ban sunglasses on, and have these ads thrown at them just in the peripheral of their glasses? How long before people are fed up with that concept? How far before people are driving and an ad pops up and they get into an accident?
This is that scene from Minority Report where Tom Cruise walks into the store and it says, hello, Mr. So-and-so, do the pants fit as well as they use? You're absolutely right. People will get sick of it. But this goes back to the earlier story about protecting your data,
which is becoming increasingly more impossible.
But also, too, like if you've called in sick from work for the day and you end up on some person's Ray-Ban footage at Disney World with your kids, like, it leads to all sorts of problems. But then again, maybe everybody will be at Disney World all the time because no one will have a job because AI will be doing all the jobs.
So I recently read, this is an inappropriate non-family show here at this point, that Disney has removed the statues of Jack Sparrow from Disney because too many young women were flashing next to it for the photos. And so, the reason I bring this up, because it ties into the story, right? With your Ray-Ban, you can create videos from things now in real time, and people pay money for stuff like this. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But the argument I was making, and again, maybe it was a little too creepy, but there are stories out there of guys going to playgrounds, taking pictures and loading them into some AI software. Nothing's stopping them from doing that with some sort of an AR filter that's built into these types of glasses. They can be staring at a lady that's standing next to the statue with all her clothes on and have some sort of a filter that shows her topless. Like, this is the weird stuff that's coming with this.
And you could end up on an OnlyFans account that you don't even know about and are not getting the revenue from.
Yeah. Well, there's your income, Michelle. You'll be fine. All right,
Thought of it. My kid said he'll kill himself if I ever create an OnlyFans account, so I don't think I'm going there.
I'm going to take us into the speed round, which is a quick recap of some stories that were worthwhile to note, but they're not worth a good deep dive. In the finance world, SoftBank is investing $500 million into OpenAI, $500 million. Japanese tech company SoftBank is investing from its Vision Fund. This is a highly anticipated funding round, $6.5 billion total. This values the company OpenAI at $150 billion with a B. So thoughts around this one? Quick hits. Michelle, we'll start with you. What do you think about SoftBank investing half a brick here?
It's an interesting one because if you read further down in the thing, he is the guy, if you've seen the WeWork special on Netflix, is the guy that just kept pouring money into WeWork. So it also talks about the fact that he's quite late to the AI party, having this being the first, sort of jump into the investment. The numbers, every week we talk about how the numbers are becoming staggering, aren't they? We had a bit of a joke. You said, oh, that's a funding round. And I said, I've got that in my small change in my wallet, no problem. But at the rate that they're burning money, will it help? I don't know what Sam's going to be doing with all the money. Like, do they have
another $4 million car?
Buy another $4 million car. I must have a look, and I'm not really, as I should be probably a bit more interested than I am, but do they have a roadmap like OpenAI on their website to tell us what they're going to be doing with all these mega millions that
they do not.
They've got? They do not, right? Yeah.
Mike, what do you think about this? $500 million.
Well,
Yeah.
it's today's date is the 2nd, right? So I guess it's an even day of the month. So it tells me that OpenAI is making money today. Tomorrow they'll be down 600 million and they'll need to raise more. So once again, we're caught in that Groundhog's Day vortex of they're making money, they need money. They're making money, they need money. Is this too late? I don't think it's ever going to be too late. There's always going to be advancements in the technology now that the foundation's here. What OpenAI uses it for and what SoftBank hopes to achieve, whether this is a get rich, get out type of investment or not, I don't know what their plans are on it. Is OpenAI the one to invest into? I think that they're just going to either scoop up and, or crush any of the competition that comes out there, at least at the beginning stages of this. The only one that really poses that threat is somebody that, doesn't have a basement to his pockets. And that's somebody like Elon, and some of his friends possibly as well. But when you start getting institutions behind this, there becomes a different layer of expectations. And once again, what can SoftBank achieve by being a part of this? The same thing Microsoft can: data. And if they have the ability to gain access to some of the back end behind the Wizard of Oz curtain data sets that OpenAI is not being very forthcoming on where it lives, then it may be a worthwhile investment, because now they can target specific people that'll result in investing, I don't know, $6 billion into SoftBank.
I think that the business side of me says this is a super smart move. They're going to really benefit from this. Who wouldn't want to invest in OpenAI right now if you could? The second side of me says this is another large, giant tech firm running a for-profit company. This has got disaster down the road written all over it in terms of what kind of AI they're going to make. But that's my thoughts. Stories.
And, as an aside, 3 more execs left this week.
They're cleaning house as they get ready for it. So what's happening, for those who don't know, OpenAI is shifting from nonprofit to for-profit. And all the folks who were lured in the beginning with Elon's vision of this is going to bring humanity a better, they're all leaving because this is not the company they joined. So there's a big turnover as this firm becomes the evil mega corporation that it's going to become. No opinion there. Story number 2. Microsoft is bringing major AI updates to its Copilot platform for Windows. So there's new AI features that will include the ability to speak directly to your AI helper. I will envision Jarvis from Iron Man. Thoughts around this one? Michelle, we'll start with you.
Well, being a Mac user, I know absolutely nothing about it, never will want to use it. However, I think one of the things that uh, some of these companies need to be mindful of, and I know just with using new software in the past for, almost anything, there's a steep learning curve to learn all of the features of these things, after 15 years of using Microsoft Excel, I probably use 10% of the features in it. So, you can stack a whole lot of features into some of these things, which sound good on paper, but ultimately, are they going to be useful for people? I don't know.
Mike, what do you think about Microsoft's new AI features?
I mean, I'd make that same argument about all technologies. I'm sure you don't use, I'm sure you don't use 20% of your phone too, right? Like there's apps and different tools in there that just aren't applicable to you. This is once again, just the thrusting and the raping of our day-to-day existence by forcing AI down our throats. But I will, this is speed round. I'll keep it short. If this AI helper that Microsoft or PC Windows, doesn't, if it's not in the form of a paperclip, I'm going to be pissed.
So my take is we're entering a phase of marketing arms race of who's got AI features. This is the Apple iPhone, the iOS 16 doesn't have enough AI in it. Microsoft's got AI in it. Descript suddenly added AI, Canva, like everyone's going to be, this is the marketing angle. That's all this is. And I think it continues.
I think that I'd like to see an AI updated ad for the Mac PC ads from the 90s and 2000s.
Our final speed round story. Changpeng Zhao, which is Binance's founder and former CEO, has come out of jail now a few days ago. He's reflecting on his time in prison. He had a post on X last week that said after being released from jail, he will continue to invest in decentralized technologies. Interestingly, he is almost done writing a book. Hasn't said what the book is about, I can guess. We'll start with you on this, Mike. What do you think?
It looks like he was in jail in the Middle East because when he got out, it's on fire. But we spoke briefly before the show. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of playing Monopoly. When the game is so far along and there's hotels on every block, sometimes the best thing to do is just chill in jail for a little bit and let everybody sort of eat themselves. I'm not suggesting that was his strategy, but it definitely might have worked out. Be interesting to see who he blows the whistle on in this book.
Michelle, what do you think?
Two things. One is clearly has used the time in jail away from everybody and all of the crap that's going on in the world and in companies to write the book, even though he says it's not quite finished, but I'm sure it's, pretty well, what do you say, 3/4 done or something like that. And secondly, not passing a particular comment about him personally or whatever, but he stood up, he took the fall, he stayed. He could have disappeared to a country that didn't have extradition in the US, and he went to jail. And from that point of view, whether or not he's done good or bad things in running the business, I think from that point of view, he scored some brownie points with me for that.
So my thoughts on this is interesting. Number one, the book will either be one of two things: a crushing crucifixion of the SEC, Gary Gensler, and the U.S. government's handling of Binance, because it was very lopsided how Coinbase was handled versus how these guys were handled. Or he'll go highbrow, and it will be a missionary type of DeFi promulgation of how the future of blockchain can transform finance, which he will then wheedle into the integration into traditional finance and just get rich again. And I think it'll be number two. Because the reality is he got his hand slapped by the American government, so he can either play ball or go against them like Elon is doing. He's going to play ball. We could see. We'll find out.
I think he's still rich. I don't think he needs to get rich again.
Yeah.
You what?
He's still got billions.
I disagree with that. I think he's rich, but I don't think he's going to stop. And I think that the plan, like the key component of this story that caught my attention is here. It's the plans to focus on blockchain, AI, and biotech. Like his whole plan is not changing right now. He can play ball. He can probably play within a specific set of perimeters, but I wouldn't be surprised if he, the time that he spent studying and, reflecting on whatever the hell he did or did not do. I'm willing to bet that he creates a different avenue of where this technology can sort of be a replacement to some of the government interventional pieces like currencies and economics and storage and security and transparency. That would be a very interesting use case of how he takes this technology to the next level and tells the SEC to stick it at the same time.
Be interesting to see. All right, that's all the stories we have for you guys this week. I'm going to do a quick recap of what the big ones were, and we'll get the key takeaways from each of our colleagues here. Story number one was AI employees. Artisan is launching a new employee, an AI employee for sales teams. Story number two is that the e-learning platform Udemy is scraping their teachers' courses. And story number three is that Meta's Ray-Bans may be a privacy risk. Michelle, we'll start with you. What is the key takeaway from these stories? Which one hits you the most? What should we know?
So I think the Udemy e-learning thing is probably the one that stuck out for me the most, just in terms of thinking about, if you're thinking about doing a course or creating some kind of a teaching thing, there's a lot of platforms out there, and, ultimately what are they going to do with your data? And that's probably something now that people are going to think about before they put their stuff onto particular platforms. That said, everything we put on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, we know they're scraping that whether we let them or not. So I just think it's getting harder. And, we've talked before about more and more the connection with people, doing meetups, live events, running your own events, doing training in-house, like, come to a place and, train people or have webinars or, seminars or whatever with people is going to become, I think, there'll be a resurgence of that more than we're currently seeing.
Mike, what is your big takeaway from the big stories this week?
Well, I mean, I feel like we've sort of repeated ourselves several times here with respect to the data collection being the important piece. But I think, just taking a step back and looking at this, not from 3,000 feet, but from a mile back, what is the advantage that I guess we collectively have witnessing the evolution of this technology? We were around before it was actually there. Right. So we remember life. We understand what the evolution was brought up to. And when you think about it from sort of that perspective, you look at companies like Facebook, and then you can point the finger at them and say, well, they stole my data after the fact. Right. You understand what they did after the fact. And now we're entrusting them with sunglasses. Fine. That's a different discussion. But I think the conclusion here with respect to data and making sure that what you're doing on a respective platform is protected. And when I mean protected, just be careful what you're doing. All of these conglomerates basically communicate with each other. They put themselves in a spot where they can pull that data from other sources. Facebook doesn't necessarily pull data only from Facebook. They pull it from websites. They pull it from Google. They share that data amongst themselves. Those guardrails were not put in place. And we can claim, again, blockchain is the solution for that, but there still needs to be advancements in the technology for somebody playing the hero in this villainous game.
So I thought my big takeaway was the story around the AI sales employee. And I may be biased, but I really feel like, number one, the buyer's journey has evolved. We've seen this happen, and companies are adapting to that with now AI, which leads to point number two. Integrating a relationship building aspect into your business on the back end is going to become the key to revenue. I'm gonna coin the term here that friendship equals revenue, because at the end of the day, there's no more selling to people. You're not gonna silver tongue convince them. They either love you and they want to give you their money, or they don't. And the AI thing is going to really shine a light on that. I think we're going to have a dichotomy: firms that know how to build relationships, firms that are just thinking this is a tech game. All right, so that's what we got for the week for you guys. I want to thank everyone for joining. As always, shout out to the Bolt Nation. Kathy, we appreciate the questions. We do pay attention to the chats. We do take the feedback that you guys provide us. And the goal here is to provide a forum and a discussion from a business perspective, the intersection of blockchain, AI, digital media. This is now shaping how business happens, and there's really not a place to learn about it, right? It's happening so fast. So that is why we have this program. That is the purpose of it. We'll be back again next week, 9:30 Eastern time, regular standard time here. And Final comments from my colleagues?
Follow us on Ray-Ban Threads.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.